Hello, Mike here, coming to you from the Art House in Sheffield. In this episode, I'll be running through how to roll out a simple slab of clay using a rolling pin and rolling guides. So I'm going to be working with 4 pounds or 1.8 kilos of clay, so enough for a nice, reasonably sized slab. So I've got my rolling pin. The rolling guides or rolling slats that I'll be using are just lengths of wood of the same thickness. So these ones here are 9mm thick. I have some slightly thinner ones here as well. So depending on the thickness of the slab you want to roll out, that'll be dictated by the thickness of these. If these are too thin for you, you can stack them up on top of each other to give yourself a thicker slab to work with. But in the meantime, the first thing I'm going to do is change the shape of this piece of clay. So this is fresh from being given a good knead to even it out. So as this is currently, it's going to be tricky to roll the slab out from. So the first thing I'm going to do is just bash it out . So just by gently bashing it out on the plywood surface repeatedly, we're giving ourselves this nice kind of cuboid block of clay to start out with. So before I start using the slats, I'm just going to thin this out a bit before I get onto the rolling process. So just beating these two sides with my palm nice and open. So we're maintaining that roughly rectangular shape, but we're just thinning it out a bit more so that it needs a bit less rolling and deforming in that way. So this is now approximately 1 inch in thickness. So I'm going to start using the rolling pin now. I'm not going to get the slats involved just yet, but to begin with, I'm just gently rolling this back and forth, not using too much pressure. It's more about that rolling back and forth over the surface. Having thinned it out a bit like so, I'm going to flip it over and rotate it 90 degrees. So having rolled it this way, we want to rotate it so that we're going to continue rolling it, and rather than just continuing to lengthen this way, we're going to end up with something more even in shape. And by flipping it over as well, we're just working into this other side, rather than one side kind of getting all of the action with the rolling pin and the other side kind of squeezing out over the canvas. And again, just flipping over and rotating 90 degrees. So you may find that you don't need to use the slats, the roller guides at all. A lot of potters will just get the hang of this by intuition and by feel of the clay. But the slats do serve as quite a handy safety measure so that you can just firmly press down into the slats without worrying about the clay getting too thin in some places or too thick in other places. So just giving the slab a pass over now with the 9mm slats just underneath either end of the rolling pin. And again, just to be on the safe side, lifting and flipping it over. So because this is now forming a reasonably sized slab, I'm going to leave it there. If you wanted to at this stage, you could continue to thin the clay out by just thinning down the slats as you go. So these ones here are 6mm thick. So by continuing to thin the slab out, it's going to continue to get bigger. But it just depends on the thickness of the clay that you're going for. If you're going to want to do any surface decoration, any impressions or carving into the slab, again, you will want it to be left thicker to give you the excess clay to work with there. So now that I have this basic slab rolled out, I'm going to use a rubber kidney. So this is just an oval of rubber that can be bought from any ceramics supplier. So it's really important to compress the clay, particularly with slab forms. If you don't compress the clay enough, it can tend to crack as it dries out. So just using the edge of the kidney, I'm just holding it very shallow to the surface of the clay. So we're not digging in at a right angle like this, it's just coming down at a very shallow angle. And I'm just gently, repeatedly pulling the clay over the surface towards myself. So it is important to be really thorough with this to prevent that problem with cracking. So just running back and forth over the surface 2 or 3 times. We're then going to rotate the slab 90 degrees. So we're going to compress it in 2 directions at 90 degrees to each other on both sides. So in a moment, once I've done this pass here, I'll also flip the slab over and compress the other side. So in addition to compressing the clay particles, this also gives you a nice smooth surface to work with. So by rolling out onto the canvas, you will have an imprint of that canvas texture on the underside of the clay. So compressing it with the kidney like so does also just help smooth it. And there you have it. So we have a nice evenly rolled out slab, compressed thoroughly in 2 directions on both sides. So once you have your slab rolled out like this, they're very versatile in terms of their uses. So you can cut whatever shapes you want out of this. They can be used to construct box forms. They can be rolled into a cylindrical shape to make something like a mug. So if I just grab, just a household bathroom tile here. So just by using this as a template and cutting down into the slab with a craft knife, just removing that excess. And by looking at the cross section of the slab here, we can see that we have a nice even surface. Once you've rolled your slab out and you've cut it into whatever shape you like so, so something like this can be a lovely surface for surface decoration, impression, anything like that. You can assemble these slabs together to make a box form. So there is an awful lot of playing around to be done once you have this basic slab rolling technique nailed down, and an awful lot of fun to be had with it, as we will explore in future videos. But for the time being, that's just the basics, so go and have some fun with that, and I'll see you next time.